AITA for withdrawing my share of our wedding fund when my fiancée said I was worthless? A 30-year-old, I never thought I would be one of those guys who tells this kind of story. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Cleveland, I was taught to believe in honest work, speaking plainly, and keeping your word. My dad worked for 35 years in the same manufacturing plant. My mom taught at the neighborhood elementary school, and together they managed to pay for my vocational school without going into debt. My fiancée, 27-year-old Natalie, came from a completely different world. We met at a backyard barbecue with friends 4 years ago. She was there with a colleague who knew the host. I noticed her watching me while I was fixing the host's grill, which was not working well. Something sparked between us that day, despite our differences, or maybe because of them. She was fascinated by my authenticity, as she called it. I was attracted to her confidence and the way she carried herself. I had been engaged to Natalie for a little over a year. We had been together for 4 years in total, and honestly, it seemed pretty solid. The wedding was planned for next spring. The save-the-dates were already sent, and we had booked this impressive venue that was her dream spot. Well, almost everything was solid. There was always this undertone with her parents, George and Margaret. Old money, the kind of people who spend their summers in the Hamptons and their winters in Aspen. I own an auto repair business that I built from nothing. It's a good business with a decent income, but clearly not in their tax bracket. From the start, they made it clear that I was not what they imagined for their daughter. Not directly, they were too refined for that, but through 1,000 little condescending digs. They were always there to check on the wedding preparations, giving suggestions that felt more like orders. I felt their disapproval every time I was with them, as if they thought their daughter was settling for less than she deserved. I will never forget that dinner at their vacation home. George handed me his keys and asked me to take a look at his Porsche because it was making a funny noise, right in the middle of the meal, as if I were the hired help and not their future son-in-law. Natalie made a remark like, he does not want to get his hands dirty, but it was not a real defense. George replied that it was indeed my job, and Danielle, Natalie's older sister, did not even bother to hide her mocking smile while suggesting he should pay me to be their designated handyman. I swallowed my pride and spent 40 minutes in their garage while everyone finished their meal. When I came back, Margaret had the nerve to hand me a plate she had kept warm, as if it were a favor. No one acknowledged how inappropriate all of that was. Driving home that night, I talked to Aaron about it. Aaron has been my best friend since high school. He works in construction, tells it like it is, and never minces words when I need the truth. Dude, they basically treated you like the hired help to your face, he said, grabbing another can of soda from the mini fridge. What is next? Are they going to ask you to park their guests' cars? Ranger, my German shepherd, rested his head on my knee as if he sensed my frustration. I scratched him behind the ears. Natalie says they are just protective. Protective, brother? They are not protecting her from you. They are protecting their damn social status. Aaron shook his head. Me, I would not put up with that for a second. I shrugged. You know how it is when you love someone. When you love someone, you do not let their family treat you like crap, retorted Aaron. And you do not let anyone treat you like crap either. Natalie always brushed off these remarks when I brought them up. They are just protective, she would say. They want the best for me. I believed her at first because that is what you do when you love someone. You trust them. We had a joint account specifically for wedding expenses. We had each put in $30,000. Mine was the fruit of years of work on my business. Hers was undoubtedly funded by her parents. In all, $60,000 for the wedding we were planning. In hindsight, there were signs I missed. Natalie had more and more private calls with her parents, especially with Danielle. She would leave the room, lower her voice, and start questioning things we had already decided on. But when you are in it, you do not always see what is happening. Danielle had influence over Natalie from the beginning. The divorced sister who claimed to know all about men and always warned Natalie against settling. She sent her articles about women who had married beneath them and regretted it. She introduced her to the brothers and cousins of her rich friends, even after our engagement, always with the same phrase, just networking. Nothing wrong with having options. And Natalie let her do it, defended her. She just wants what is best for me, she said. Our arguments became more and more frequent. I brought up her family's condescension, and she immediately got defensive, telling me I was too sensitive or that I should make more of an effort to fit in. After a particularly tense argument where I pointed out that Danielle had called my shop a little garage during a family dinner, Natalie exploded and told me I should be more ambitious, that her father had built an empire while I was content fixing cars. I looked at her, seeing the underlying contempt for the first time. Those cars pay for half of this wedding, and they paid for the ring on your finger. She apologized afterward, blaming it on the stress of the preparations. I accepted it because I believed we were building something real. The last straw came 2 days before she left. Danielle had invited herself over to our place, supposedly to talk about wedding details. Natalie had gone out to get food, leaving me alone with Danielle. Ranger, who never liked Danielle by the way, stayed at a distance, watching her from his bed. As soon as Natalie left, Danielle told me straight up that Natalie was settling for me, that she could do much better, like the surgeon's son of her father's golf partner who had just bought a summer house in the Hamptons. When I asked her to leave, she laughed and told me she was working on Natalie and that she would eventually open her eyes. When Natalie came back, I told her right away, "Your sister just told me she is actively trying to break us up," I said as soon as she walked in. "What are you talking about, Danielle?" "She told me straight up that you were settling for me." "What does that mean, Natalie?" Her face turned red. "Oh my God, William, do you always do this?" "Always do what?" "Tell you when your family treats me like dirt?" "I ignored it for a long time just for you. But this was really too much." "No, you always twist everything they say." She must have been joking. "Joking? Are you serious right now?" "Well, maybe if you were not so damn insecure about." My voice rose. "Your sister just disrespected me, and I am the insecure one?" "Yes, insecure," yelled Natalie back. "Because a normal person would have laughed it off. And here you are making a big deal out of nothing. And you are still defending her." "I am not defending anyone. I am just sick of every family dinner, every conversation ending with you complaining because they treat me like dirt. You do not even see the problem. Listen, either you talk to them seriously, or things are going to change. They are only reacting to your attitude. You complain about Danielle. At least she does not make me feel like I have to choose between my family and my fiancé," she replied, tears in her eyes. That was the last argument before the implosion. That night, she slept on the couch while Ranger slept in my room. It was the best night of his life. I knew something was wrong when I got home from work on a Tuesday. The apartment felt different, empty in a way. Even before noticing that some of her things were missing, Ranger came to greet me at the door instead of staying on the couch as usual, following me nervously as if he sensed the change. I found the note on the kitchen counter next to her engagement ring. 3 paragraphs that boiled down to 5 words that hit me like a physical blow. "My parents think you are worthless." The full message was longer, wrapped in softer language talking about taking a break, reevaluating our compatibility, and our different life expectations. But those 5 words, the only ones that really mattered, burned through everything else. "My parents are worried about our future together," she had written. "They do not think you can provide the lifestyle I deserve. I need time to think about what I really want. I am going to stay at their place for a while." She did not even have the courage to tell me to my face. For years, and I get a note. I sat for hours at the kitchen table, the ring catching the light when I moved. That 3-carat diamond that had already blown my budget 2 years earlier, well before I even started saving for the wedding. That ring that had made her eyes shine when I proposed. Not good enough, not established enough, worthless. After 4 years together, after she insisted on a big wedding, something about the timing fell off. We had to settle the final payments for the venue in just a few weeks. I had poured $30,000 of my savings into our joint account for the wedding. The pragmatic side of my brain woke up through the shock and pain. This was not an emotional break. It was a calculated tactic. A vicious little voice whispered to me, "Check with the venue." The next morning, I called the venue coordinator. "Cynthia, hello, this is William Davis. I wanted to check a few details about the menu for the spring wedding." A silence that was too long. "Oh, Mr. Davis. Actually, Natalie called Monday afternoon. She canceled the reservation." Monday, the day before the breakup note. "Canceled?" I kept a light tone. "Not postponed. No, a complete cancellation. Unforeseen circumstances," she said. The initial deposit of $10,000 was obviously non-refundable. Of course, that deposit. I thanked Cynthia and hung up. Then I sat at the kitchen table, staring into space. The break was just theater. The wedding was already dead by her hand. I opened my online banking app. Joint account balance, $50,000 remaining. My contribution of $30,000, hers of $30,000, minus the lost deposit of $10,000. My half of those remaining $50,000 was $25,000. It was my money for a wedding she had already sabotaged in secret. I transferred my $25,000 out of the account. Clean, simple, fair. Then I sent her a text. Natalie, I just learned from the venue that you canceled everything on Monday before your note. So the break is permanent. I withdrew my share of the remaining funds from the wedding account. Seems fair since there is no more wedding. I hope you find the lifestyle you deserve. Then I blocked her. I blocked her parents too, and her sister Danielle. I called Aaron right after. Need a drink, was all I said. 20 minutes later, he was at my door with a six-pack and a pizza. Ranger was running around us, all excited. He always liked Aaron, probably because Aaron slipped him pepperoni slices when he thought I was not looking. I told him the whole story. The note, the venue, the money. Holy crap, whispered Aaron, whistling low. So she dumps you via a note after canceling the venue. But before telling you there will not be a wedding? That is cold-bloodedly calculated. Yeah. Well, I am done playing the nice guy in this story. Aaron raised his can. It was about time. Cheers for finally having some guts. Screw them. I laughed for the first time in days. Seriously, said Aaron, suddenly sincere. You did the right thing. She was trying to play you. Ranger settled between us on the couch, his head on my lap, completely relaxed now that his pack was reunited, minus one member he surely would not miss. Sometimes, understanding is a very expensive lesson for someone else. The silence lasted exactly 6 days. These days, blocked is just a suggestion. Thursday morning, a voicemail from an unknown number. Natalie, angry, not sad. William, what do you think you were doing? You took money from our wedding account. You cannot do that. Call me back immediately. Our wedding. The one she had canceled. Delusional. I did not call back. Then came the emails. Urgent, financial error. You made a huge mistake. We need to talk now. In summary, I had stolen her money. I was petty, and I was ruining everything. The break was not a breakup. Of course, she stammered that the venue cancellation was not finalized when I had confronted her. But let us be real, a complete cancellation is pretty definitive. She is panicking, said Aaron at lunch, at the diner near my shop. She thought you were going to roll over and wait for her to decide if you were worthy. Now she is in a bind. Ranger was at the shop, surely napping in his bed behind the counter. The guys who work for me love him, and customers seem to trust a shop with a dog. He is a good judge of character, as I always say. Then Margaret, Natalie's mother, found my work email. It was a work of art in passive aggressiveness. William, Natalie is devastated. Although we expressed slight reservations, your actions were disproportionate and cruel. You took funds intended for deposits. Natalie is now in a terrible position. As a gentleman, you should rectify this mistake immediately. Rectify this mistake. I love that. As if I had stumbled by accident and my money fell into her account. The $10,000 venue deposit was already lost. $5,000 of mine, $5,000 of hers. My withdrawal of $25,000 out of the remaining $50,000 left her exactly her $25,000. It is not that complicated. My only reply to Margaret, copying Natalie, was this. Dear Margaret, Natalie canceled the wedding venue on Monday, October 9th, before informing me she wanted a break. The funds were for this wedding. Since there is no wedding, I took back my share. Natalie still has the entirety of her contribution. Any other commitment is up to her. End of story. That was like a red flag to a bull. The weekend was a deluge of missed calls and frantic emails. William, the caterer, needs his deposit too. I paid some vendors from my personal account, assuming the joint money was still there. You owe me this. These claims about other payments made from her personal account made me hesitate. If it was true, the timing was going to be crucial. Then Danielle sent me a message on LinkedIn. William, listen to me closely. You need to fix this now. Natalie is hysterical. Mom and Dad are furious, and I am tired of dealing with this drama. Give her back the money and stop being a jerk. It is only money. And God knows that for once, you need to do the right thing. It is only money. Easy for her to say. Daddy's company had been paying her consulting fees for years for work no one could ever describe. The arrogance is top tier, said Aaron while scrolling through the screenshots I had sent him. I bet they have never heard the word no. They are hearing it now, I replied Saturday night, looking at an old photo. We were happy. I felt foolish. A flash of regret. Then I remembered the note. My family thinks you are worthless. The cold returned. Ranger, sensing my mood, pushed his head under my hand, forcing me to pet him. Good therapy, this dog. It was about facts, not emotions. She had made choices. She was facing the bill. 3 weeks passed, and things escalated. Not by my doing. I was Switzerland, calm, neutral, and collecting evidence. Natalie and the Hawthorns, George, Margaret, and Danielle as the attacked dog, had doubled down. Dirty tricks, insinuations on social media, cryptic posts from Natalie, betrayal of trust, picking up the pieces. Sophie, her friend, encouraging her. He never appreciated you anyway. Annoying, but ultimately just hot air. You know what kills me? Said Aaron while we were working on his truck one weekend. They act like you are the bad guy when she is the one who pulled the rug out from under your feet. It is their worldview. I replied, coming out from under the truck. When you are used to privilege, fairness looks like oppression. Look at that. The philosopher, laughed Aaron, handing me a wrench. Soon you will launch a podcast, Shop Wisdom with William. Ranger was running in the yard, enjoying his freedom. Natalie had always insisted that he was too energetic and wanted him locked in a crate when she had friends over. He seemed happier these days. Me too. Then came her next tactic, going after our shared items. Natalie emailed a list of demands for items from my apartment. Some were gifts from her, okay, but she also wanted my stuff from before we met. The sound system, vintage car parts one had collected my tools. Her logic that we enjoyed them together does not create shared ownership. She also claimed kitchen gadgets that were wedding gifts sent to my address by my relatives. The audacity. But the big play was the financial fog machine. She claimed to have advanced thousands of dollars for various wedding things with her personal accounts, thinking she would be reimbursed by our joint wedding fund. Digging in, I saw she had produced invoices. The problem? I had never agreed to reimburse her personal expenses, like her wedding outfit, with the joint fund. Her dress was her dress. My suit was my suit. The deposits she was claiming, I discovered some were dated after she canceled the main venue. So, she cancels the wedding, then continues to spend on a photographer, florists, and other vendors. Why exactly? A phantom wedding? Or more likely, to create fake financial obligations to charge me while buying time with her breakup story. She also demanded that I pay half of the cancellation fees for the vendors she had booked then canceled, including the $10,000 non-refundable deposit for the main venue. She conveniently forgot that $5,000 of that loss already came from my share. She wanted me to add another $5,000 so she would be unscathed while I would lose $10,000 in total. The mathematics of truly spoiled children. It is a special form of creative accounting. Her parents backed her up. Margaret called my mother. My mom listened, then basically said that Natalie had made decisions without consulting me and that she now had to face the consequences. The conversation was short. I was proud of her. Danielle left moralizing messages saying I was jealous because Natalie came from a rich family and I did not, and that a real man would accept his responsibilities. A secret wedding cancellation, and I was the petty one. Okay, princess. The harassment continued. The Hawthorns could not believe their daughter was facing real consequences. So, they doubled the pressure. George called my shop directly, getting one of my mechanics. The poor guy came into my office, looking lost. Boss, there is a furious guy on the line claiming to be your almost father-in-law and demanding to speak to you. I took the call in my office, door closed. George did not even bother with pleasantries. William, this has gone on long enough. You made your point. Natalie is very upset. Sorry to hear that, I said in a neutral tone, but I do not really see what you expect from me. You know very well. The money. Return it, and we can move on. I almost burst out laughing. Move on to what exactly? Natalie canceled our wedding without warning me, then left me a note saying I was not good enough for her. There is no after to that. She was confused, under pressure. Weddings are stressful. She made a mistake, but you are punishing her financially, which is petty and unworthy of you. George, let us be clear. The money I took back was my contribution to the wedding fund. A wedding that no longer exists because your daughter canceled it. I did not take her money. I took mine. He sighed as if speaking to a particularly slow child. Listen, son. I am not your son, and I never will be. Very well, William. Be reasonable. Natalie has expenses, commitments made in good faith. After canceling the venue? That is not good faith. It is manipulation. This will not go away, said George, his voice hardening. We have options, legal options. Go ahead, I replied, surprised by my calmness. Document everything. I did. The call ended with vague threats from George. Later, I received another email from Natalie, this time with an Excel spreadsheet listing all her pending wedding expenses she wanted me to cover half of. The total exceeded $21,000. I forwarded it to my lawyer without replying. That same evening, I walked Ranger for a long time in the neighborhood. The fresh evening air felt good. I found myself thinking back to what Aaron had said earlier that week. You know what this is really about? He had asked me. It is not the money. It is that you are the first one who has said no to her. He was right. It was not about $25,000. It was a story of control. The next phase of their attack was more targeted. They started contacting people in my circle. Aaron texted me on a Wednesday morning. Dude, your ex's sister just called my work, asking how she got my number. They had found my business's Facebook page, where Aaron was once tagged in a restoration project with me. From there, they had traced back to his workplace. What did she want? I asked when we met up later. Dirt on you, said Aaron, shaking his head. She wanted to know if you had ever been financially controlling or shown signs of instability. I told her to go to hell and hung up. They contacted 2 other friends of mine the same way. One hung up immediately. The other stayed on long enough to tell Danielle what he thought of her and her family's methods. Then came the attack on my reputation. They contacted some of my clients, insinuating that I was unstable and unreliable. Fortunately, most knew me for years and warned me immediately. One of my oldest clients, a fleet manager for a delivery company, called me directly. William, I got a weird call about you today. A woman claiming to be your ex's mother. She told me to reconsider our business because you supposedly have legal troubles. What is this madness? I quickly explained the situation. He burst out laughing. Well, that backfired on them. I just signed to have you service 3 new vans instead of the dealership. If they are trying to sabotage you, it means you are doing your job right. The last straw was when they called my parents. My father, who has never been talkative, simply said, "My son is an honest man. Your daughter broke his heart. You should all be ashamed," and hung up. My response to all this was documentation. Every email, every voicemail, every text from before the breakup, my own bank statements proving my wedding-related purchases, and confirmation from vendors I had dealt with that no contract was solely my responsibility. A small consultation with a lawyer, to whom I showed the timeline, the simple partner agreement stating that funds were for common wedding expenses, proof of my contribution and withdrawal, and confirmation of the hall cancellation. His opinion: you are covered. The money you took back was verifiable as yours, intended for a purpose she unilaterally canceled. Subsequent expenses or cancellation fees. That is her problem. He added, she is trying to push you. Do not let her. Good advice. Smart move, getting a lawyer, said Aaron, stopping by the shop with lunch one day. Ranger immediately abandoned his post at the door to go greet him. Trader, how much did it cost you? A few $100s. Every penny was worth it for the peace of mind. Yeah, well, thank your brother-in-law for the recommendation. Patrick said he was happy to help. According to him, guys like you get taken advantage of in this kind of situation because they try to be nice. Not this time, I replied, taking the sandwich he was offering. The expensive part for Natalie had already started. She was stuck with several non-refundable deposits she had paid after canceling the main haul, but before our breakup. Deposits she continued to make to build a case of expenses while she figured out how to get more money out of me. The photographer, the baker specializing in high-end cakes, the string quartet she absolutely wanted for the ceremony that would never happen. These vendors demanded their cancellation fees, and they turned to her, not me. I had not been aggressive. I had not defamed her. I had simply withdrawn. I had withdrawn my support, my money. It's fascinating, actually, to see how quickly we and ours turned back into me when the free ride ended. My resolve was firm. She wanted a break. She got it. A permanent, financially awkward break. The insult of being worthless still stung sometimes late at night. But when I looked at the growing file of her increasingly delusional demands, I told myself, yes, I am worth much more than putting up with this. A month later, it was revealing. The arrogance had reached its peak. Then, finally, the music began to fade. For them, anyway. For me, it was a period of calm, of firm lines drawn in the sand. The dirty tricks continued for a while, then died down. Natalie, through her father George this time, had a lawyer send a letter full of big words: misappropriation of joint marital funds, emotional distress, breach of promise of marriage. It demanded that I return the $25,000 withdrawn, plus an additional $15,000 to cover her losses related to canceled vendors and damages. So, $40,000. Ridiculous. My lawyer replied with a very polite, very factual 2-page letter containing the timeline, bank statements, and a reminder that her contracts with vendors were her sole responsibility, especially those entered into after she had already secretly canceled the main haul. We never heard from their lawyer again. I guess he realized he did not have a case to build on. George probably did not appreciate paying legal fees for that wet firecracker. The insinuations on social media ran out of steam too. I think some of her friends, maybe even Sophie, started to understand who was serving the drama. Sophie, who liked and commented on all of Natalie's passive-aggressive posts, suddenly went silent. When a tearful story does not bring in money, people lose interest fast. Then came the rather pathetic confrontation. Natalie managed to get me on the phone. I had unblocked her one day out of morbid curiosity. Big mistake. Or maybe not. It was enlightening. She immediately played the victim, whining that I had ruined everything and that she was drowning in debt, harassed by vendors. When I asked her who had canceled the haul in secret, she claimed she was under pressure and confused, but that I did not need to be so vindictive by taking back all that money. When I reminded her that it was my money for a wedding she had decided to cancel, she decreed that a real man would have paid her fees for her, being a gentleman. I replied that a gentleman, according to her definition, looked like a doormat with a bank account, and that was not me. When she started crying about what it had cost her, I told her it cost her exactly what her choices had entailed. A week later, Danielle attempted an ambush at a coffee shop I frequent. She arrived, designer bag on her arm, all puffed up with pride, and started hissing reproaches about what I had done to her sister. I did not even look up from my laptop. I simply told her there was nothing to discuss. Her sister had made choices and had to live with them. I suggested that she and her parents help Natalie settle her finances since they had been stakeholders in her decisions. That is when she let it slip. Natalie had already found better, Leonard, the surgeon's son of her father's golf friend. Apparently, they had been seeing each other for weeks, right after she left me, and he was already talking about helping her settle her debts. That is what a real man does, said Danielle in a triumphant tone. I just replied to her, good luck to Natalie, and I hope Leonard knows what he is getting into. Danielle went full snob mode, claiming that Natalie had always been too good for a simple mechanic, and that she knew it now. I stood up and left while she was in the middle of a monologue, letting her explode on her own. From what I understood, Natalie's credit card debts were piling up. The vendors she had ditched were demanding their cancellation fees, and they were right. Her parents were helping her financially, but I bet that came with a stock of "we told you so," and "how could you be so stupid?" I received one last unexpected email from Sophie, Natalie's best friend. She apologized, saying she had only heard Natalie's version and that she now saw things differently. I did not reply. While all this circus was unfolding, I focused on what really mattered, my business. The auto shop was running well, but I had been so absorbed by wedding preparations and Natalie's family drama that I had put aside some expansion plans. With my $25,000 recovered and no more wedding to organize, I had both the capital and the mental space to move forward. I hired another mechanic, invested in new diagnostic equipment, and started offering specialized services for European cars, something I had wanted to do for years. And guess what? Customers with their Porsches and BMWs who did not want to pay dealership rates were delighted to find a competent independent shop. Ironic, when you think about the way Natalie's father treated me about his precious Porsche. The new direction was bearing fruit. Revenues were up 22% compared to the same quarter last year. Aaron was taking specialized training courses, and word of mouth was spreading. I even had to start turning down work because we were booked solid 3 weeks in advance. Aaron stopped by one afternoon while I was doing the books. Ranger greeted him with his usual enthusiasm. "Looks like you are doing pretty well for a worthless guy," said Aaron, taking a look at the spreadsheet on my computer. "Turns out, being single is good for business," I replied. "Who knew?" "You should send a thank you letter to Natalie," he joked. "Dear Natalie, thanks for dumping me. It allowed me to make money instead of trying to impress your insufferable family. Signed, W." "Yeah, I am sure that would go over well." "Seriously," said Aaron, sitting at my desk. "You dodged a bullet. Imagine being tied to those people for the rest of your life." I nodded. He was right. As painful as the breakup was, it would have been much worse to spend decades putting up with the Hawthorns' constant judgments and Natalie's growing resentment. "Speaking of bullets dodged," continued Aaron, "heard from the new guy? The surgeon?" "Not a word," I said, "and I am perfectly happy for it to stay that way." I did not know yet that story was far from over. It has been almost 5 months since that last phone call with Natalie, and about 7 since my world turned upside down. Life goes on. It is quieter now. The anger has almost faded. I do not rejoice in Natalie's financial difficulties, but I do not lose sleep over them either. She made her bed. She is sleeping in it. From what I hear vaguely, Natalie is still suffering the financial consequences. She had to move back in with George and Margaret for a while to save up, which must be a special kind of hell for everyone. The debt from the dream wedding is apparently a very sensitive subject. About a month ago, I ran into Sophie at the supermarket. She looked uncomfortable seeing me, but still came over to ask how I was doing. When I said I was doing well, she asked if I had heard what happened, and then she dropped the bomb. Turns out this famous doctor, Leonard, that Natalie had started seeing was neither a surgeon nor rich, but a con man who targeted wealthy families. He had convinced George to invest in a fake medical tech startup, then disappeared with the money. They were trying to keep it quiet, but their whole clique knew. I could not help but laugh. Talk about karma. The best part, Natalie and Danielle had a spectacular falling out because of it. Natalie accused Danielle of introducing her to Leonard and pushing her to leave me. She called her toxic at George's birthday dinner in front of everyone. They are no longer speaking, and Danielle is not even invited to family gatherings anymore. "You cannot make this stuff up," said Aaron when I told him about it over takeout. Almost enough to make me pity her. Almost. The irony is huge, I agreed. They thought I was not good enough and got fleeced of $500,000 by a scammer posing as exactly what they wanted. "Goes to show," concluded Aaron. "Sometimes the best revenge is just to step aside and let karma do its job." A Tuesday night, as I was finishing my day at the shop, Natalie showed up. She looked thinner, more drawn, but still impeccably dressed. She wanted to talk. Against my better judgment, I gave her 5 minutes. Ranger, who was dozing in his bed, immediately sat up when she entered. He did not growl, but he put himself between us, watching her carefully. "Smart dog." She started with the sobs, saying she had made a huge mistake listening to her family, especially Danielle, that Leonard had been a disaster, that her family was in ruins, and that she was living in her teenage bedroom at 30, that she missed me and had changed. I felt nothing seeing her cry. When she finished her speech about how she had learned her lesson and that we could try again, I simply said, "No." Her face fell. "What do you mean, no?" "It means no. We are not getting back together. We are not trying again. There is no more us." The tears did not stop, but something calculated crossed her look. "There is someone else, right? You have already moved on." When I replied that my life was no longer her concern, she got angry. The tears stopped dead, replaced by accusations. I was cruel after she had come to apologize. "You came because your backup plan blew up in your face, and you are looking for a place to land. It will not be with me." Her face hardened, and she accused me of taking pleasure in seeing her suffer, of having a vindictive side. I told her to leave, or I was calling the police. On her way out, she shouted that I would regret it, that when I was alone in my little shop, I would wish I had given her a second chance. I smiled for the first time since she arrived. I'd rather be alone in my shop than with someone who thinks I'm worthless. Later that evening, I texted Aaron. "Guess who showed up at the shop today?" His reply came fast. "Princess Entitlement in person? What did she want? To start over?" "She says she has changed." "And you said?" Out of the question. That is my boy. Dinner Friday to celebrate your extended freedom. You pay. In your dreams, cheapskate. As for me, the $25,000 I had withdrawn from the joint account are in savings, where they belong. I kept the engagement ring. It is in a safe deposit box at the bank. Maybe one day I will sell it, or maybe it will just remain a very expensive reminder. I have been on a few dates, nothing serious. I am in no rush. My revenge, if you can call it that, was simply holding her accountable for her own actions. I did not stoop to her level. I did not throw mud. I just exposed the facts, protected my money, and moved on. Ranger and I moved into a smaller place, closer to the shop. No need to keep the apartment we had rented thinking of Natalie. It is perfect for both of us. I can walk to work, and there is a dog park nearby where Ranger has made his own buddies. So yes, life is not a fairy tale. Sometimes the princess turns out to be more interested in the royal treasury than the prince. And sometimes, the supposedly worthless guy turns out to be good enough to see through the deception and walk away with his dignity and his savings intact. Comment. I hope this story reminds you how important it is to know your own worth. Setting boundaries is not about being unkind. It is about respecting yourself enough to protect your peace. True kindness includes being kind to yourself, which means not letting others devalue you. We cannot control how others act, but we always have the power to control our own responses. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a situation that no longer serves your well-being. Healing often starts the moment you decide your future happiness matters more than a painful past. Sticking to the facts and acting with integrity can be a calm harbor in a storm of drama. Difficult experiences, as tough as they are, can clear the path for something much better in your life. Always choose the people and situations that build you up, not the ones that require you to shrink yourself to fit in. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.